Hey guys, welcome to the film photography channel. It's Eric and I'm here with the Yashica Electro 35 GSN. Okay, so this camera, the Yashica Electro 35 GSN, is a 70s era fixed lens, mostly metal, 35 millimeter compact. It is a nicely built camera. This is a camera that I've kind of used to dream about getting when I was a kid. It was too expensive, for me at the time. So it's kind of nice to, umpteen years later, be able to get one of these. It is a 35 millimeter film camera, obviously in the category of like the Canon QL17 G3, which I've reviewed on this channel, like the Minolta Hymatic 7S2, the Olympus 35 DC. Except for this, just a little bit bigger than those cameras, maybe even a tiny bit heavier. But it's kind of still in that same basic category. Most of those cameras have a 40 millimeter. Actually, all of them have a 40 millimeter 1.7. This one is a 45 millimeter 1.7. So another slight difference there. Just to go over the body real quick with you. Obviously, it's a rangefinder. There's the window that generates the focusing patch and like in a little diamond shape there. The light meter is actually here in this window. Typically, the light meter is going to be behind the filter on the top or on the side of the lens, but usually it's on the lens there, on the lens ring there. But on this particular one, it's here, which means that if you pop like a neutral density filter or something like that on there, then you won't, the filter or the metering system won't compensate for it. Okay, so looking at the top, this camera is fully electronic, needs batteries to work. Here's your ISO dial, and it's got a pretty decent ISO range from 25 to 1000, which is okay. It's got these two like dummy lights here, I'll call them, these two LEDs, which were a big deal, because you think about when this camera came out, LEDs were like brand new, or certainly new in consumer products. Anyway, okay, so the red LED is an overexposure LED. Now this camera will still let you take the photo. Like some of those cameras won't let you take a photo if you're over or underexposed. It'll lock the shutter. This camera won't do that, but it'll let you know that, hey, you're overexposed. And there's also a corresponding red arrow inside the viewfinder. The yellow light is just to let you know you're going to be using a slow shutter speed, that you should probably put the camera on a tripod, just so you don't get a blurry photo. But it does not tell you in either case what the shutter speeds are going to be, because when you look in the viewfinder there is no indicator for what shutter speed you're using. You'll know if it's a slow shutter speed, whatever that means. I think it means 1/30th or below in the case of this. Or it'll let you know that you're overexposed, and it'll still take the picture, but your picture is going to be blown out if you don't stop the lens down. All right, so moving on. Nice metal construction, nice engraving here. The moniker, the Electro 35, is engraved nicely there. The shutter lock is here, just a ring around the shutter release. Shutter release does have a threaded standard cable release thread there. I'll say one thing about this. This kind of it takes a little getting used to. As you can see, it doesn't lock in either position. It can easily be moved. Typically, when you advance the film, sometimes you might do something like this, because this film advance goes way out there. Okay, and so it's very easy to put it in a locked position, until you get used to that thing anyway. The battery check is huge. There's a lot of real estate dedicated to a battery check button. I'm not sure why. It's got a big old battery check sign and a tiny little red button. But anyway, when you hit the battery check button, but the film counter window lights up in green, you're either a go or a no-go. So it's either a good battery or it's not. Because again, this camera depends a lot on electronics, so it probably doesn't work well with a with a low battery. All right, another thing that's a little unusual for this camera, for this type of camera, is that the self timer or the timer delay is right here, right on top of the lens. instead of typically here or maybe even here or sometimes up here, usually there's like a lever that you use for self-timer, but in this case it's kind of old school, like a lot of these older like folding cameras, a lot of them or most of them had the self-timer on the lens like that. It is a leaf shutter, so flash sync happens all the way up to the top speed of 1/500. You can use the leaf shutter. I'm sorry, you can use flash in every speed. On the lens itself, you can see there's an auto setting, which puts it in the aperture priority mode, which is the only auto mode. It's aperture priority, or you can put it in the flash sync mode, where the camera takes over and determines correct flash exposure. You don't have to do a whole lot of anything. You don't have to worry about guide numbers. Or you can go into the bulb mode, and we all know what that does. Okay. All right. This camera does focus a little bit closer than most cameras of its type. Typically, they're right at 3 feet. Pretty much all of them focus as close as 3 feet. This one is at 2.6 feet, so not a huge difference. It's got a short focus throw, two handles here, or two grips on either side. You can see it focuses fairly quickly from end to end. And then you've got the X-Sync port there with a nice cover on it. And I'll show you one thing here just real quick. As you take the photo, you'll hear the shutter. It's a nice clicky shutter. Yep, there's that shutter lock again. And then you get a secondary thump. Not sure why that is, but just to point it out. So you'll hear first a click, and then when you release the shutter, you hear like a little clunk. Not a huge deal, but just an observation. And you can see how far that film stroke, film advance happens. And if I were holding it normally, it'd be very easy to knock this, into the lock position, which has happened more than once. The viewfinder is big. It's spacious. It's about the size of like the Canonet QL17. Just to look at it, yeah, it's about the same size. You've got frame lines that don't move, and there is no parallax lines either. I'll point that out. On the Canon, the frame lines move to compensate for parallax. Yashica just said forget parallax apparently. Yeah, so okay, so you do have the nice focus patch. It's a rough diamond shape, or you can kind of make out it's a diamond shape, and it focuses nicely. It's a really bright rangefinder patch, so focusing is no problem. Just to talk about the body real quick. Okay, so the fit and finish, the construction, the way the body is put together, it's nice. Okay, this I liken this camera to a I don't know, a Hyundai or something. It's a nicely built car, or it's a nicely built camera, and it does use nice materials. I mean, it's mostly metal. It's brushed aluminum. It's shiny aluminum. Everything moves really nicely, but it's not a premium camera, okay? And I guess you just have to kind of hold one of these and then hold a Leica, like an M6 or something in the same moment, and then you'll see what I'm talking about, because it is a nicely put together camera. You can't fault it. I mean, it's metal. Everything is put together nicely, but it's just not premium. But that's, it is what it is. This is like driving, I don't know, a Honda versus a BMW. Hondas are great cars. They're put together nicely. They do everything right, but they're not a BMW or a Mercedes or something. Those are premium cars. They're nicer. And so I guess that's the best analogy I can come up with right now. But yeah, let's take this bad boy out. Let's see what it can do. And just by the way, this, as we know, is the Yashica Electro 35 GSN. The Electro 35 GTN is the black body version of this. Instead of the silvery aluminum, you'll have black painted aluminum. But otherwise, as far as I can tell, it's the same camera. And I bought this from a guy on eBay that, after researching the camera, because I haven't really looked at this camera since I was a kid, after researching it a little bit, I found this guy that refurbishes these, and he does a lot more than CLA. What he'll actually do is fix the electronics, because apparently there was, since these are older cameras, the electronics, I guess, didn't hold up very well. So this one has been perfect, going on the third roll. So far, so good. no problems at all. I would highly recommend that you go to this guy. And I say that because you don't want to get an old camera with bad electronics. It's kind of good that he's doing that, and he's keeping a really a beautiful old camera alive, giving it a second life. So it's just to put that out there, I would recommend that you make sure that the electronics are good in this camera, because apparently that's the Achilles heel. All right, let's take it out.